Hello, my name's Jules and I'm the Dawdling Writer. If you are here to procrastinate, welcome, you're in good company. Today is day 3 of NaNoWriMo 2019. Today is the first official write-in at one of the coffee pubs downtown, and so I'm going to go this afternoon and get my words in there, see if there's who else is going to be there and whatnot. There were about a dozen writers for the launch party, so I'm not entirely sure who's going to be able to make it to some of the differently scheduled write-ins, but I'm going to go to as many as I can and meet other Authortubers and writers and just meet people who are in love with writing. I am actually vlogging in my car, which is something that I did not think would happen. But I am headed to the grocery store to get coffee creamer because we cannot do early mornings and late nights without coffee, and unfortunately I am not someone who can drink coffee black. I'm super excited. I got some notes done for the last scene in chapter 2, so I didn't quite finish it yesterday, but I got several notes for chapter 2 and several notes for chapter 3 for the different scenes in chapter 3. We are going to be trying to finish chapter 2, get maybe halfway through chapter 3, a little character. I am still I have a temporary name for him. I know I should have figured that out in Preptober. I did figure out his, what I thought was going to be his last name, but as I'm writing it, I'm not feeling it as much as I thought I would. So I'm gonna have to figure out why. As a temporary placeholder, it's fine because I am writing it in first person, which means it'll be from his perspective, and we'll see the I and the me and whatnot. So that cuts down on the number of times that I have to type his name. But I don't know, I'm not feeling it, and so I'm gonna have to look up some names, maybe go to the name generator websites. I'm just not quite feeling it, but I did figure out the name of a creature, or the species name of the creature that he meets in chapter 2. I knew that I wanted it to be some sort of hybrid magical creature, and since it was in the woods, I knew I was envisioning it having the antlers of a deer, but it was definitely not a deer. It definitely had like claws and talons, and so I was like, what is this? I know I've seen this before. What is it? And so I went researching last night, as you do when you're a pantser, and you don't plan out every single detail. You go looking last minute. It's like, I've seen this before. What is this? But it is an mythological creature, and this was highly amusing. I think a variant of that particular creature is what Mushu from Mulan is named, because Mushu is apparently actually the name of something very similar to this creature, in that it has sort of a dragon face and lion claws, and then eagle talons on the back feet, if I'm remembering that right. And where was it? I think I feel like it was from Mesopotamia, but that could also be wrong. It's probably wrong, but I don't remember it off the top of my head, and you would think I would because I looked it up last night and I was like, oh, this is what my creature is, but it's not quite. I changed it a bit because I didn't want Mushu in there, because then all I would be thinking of was Eddie Murphy. So yay. So he's not Mushu, but he is sort of a variant of that. So yeah, that was fun. I find mythological things so crazily fun. I was obsessed with fairy tales and mythology when I was a kid. Our local library had some of the Andrew Lang fairy tales, and so those were the color-coded fairy tale books. So like the blue fairy tales were from usually like the French region, so you have sort of like the original Cinderella from there and whatnot, and then you would have like the olive one, so you'd have the Italian versions of folk stories and fairy tales, and so you have this whole rainbow series of books, and they were just absolutely fascinating to me as a child, and I just checked those out over and over and over again, and I actually was able to find the entire collection in 2 ginormous coffee table book sizes, and so I ordered those, and they're massive. They're absolutely massive, but I have to do a little bit of work with them because there's no table of contents other than like what page the next like book begins on. So I'm gonna have to go through and do a little bit of record keeping and then stick a table of contents into the books, which is probably not gonna happen this month because we're gonna be focusing on NaNoWriMo. I would love to, because that's the kind of thing that like absolutely distracts me for an afternoon or 2 days, depending on how long. But yeah, so that is definitely something that I would normally distract myself with, but I'm gonna try and behave. Alright, so I'm at the grocery store and I'm gonna go in and get my coffee creamer, and one of the local writers, this is her first time doing NaNoWriMo, and she has apparently been thinking about this story for the longest time, and she kept trying to, tell the story, hey, I'm not a writer, this is not what I do, you should find somebody else to write you. But it just didn't go away, so she actually apparently recently bought a desk so that she could write this story, and she had never heard of NaNoWriMo, and then she got an email about the NaNoWriMo launch party, and so we were all like, it's a sign, you need to write this story, and the story is telling you the time is now. So she was super excited about that, but we sort of talked about, when the story is knocking on your head and telling you, hey, write me, then you need to be paying attention. But she also asked about how once you sort of immerse yourself into the story world, how do you re-emerge and become a normal person again when you have things to do in life? I should not be readjusting you while I'm driving. Bad, Jules. Very bad. Don't do that. Okay, so yeah, and that's a very good point, and I don't often get into the zone like that, but when I do, it's very hard to sleep because your ideas just keep spinning in your head, and you're like, oh, this is such a good idea, I need to write this down. But if I did that, I would never go to sleep, because my brain and the way I fall asleep, it has always been that I tell stories, and so I entertain myself to sleep at night, and so that's just how I get to sleep, is I start telling myself stories, and so it takes me half an hour to an hour to fall asleep at night, and then if I'm really invested in the story, then it might take me all night, because that's just how my brain works. And if I got up and wrote all these things down, I would definitely have a plethora of stories written down by now, but I would be an insomniac galore and I just would be kind of out of my mind from lack of sleep. I'm not really explaining this very well. But, what was it? Where was I going with this? Oh, the advice. The advice from the NaNoWriMo winners from the past years was that, you know, most writers who really get into the zone, they never really fully re-emerge from their story worlds, and that's fine. But if you know that you have something to do, like if you have a job that you need, your brain needs to be completely present for, then don't write immediately before that, or give yourself a break, sort of to drink a cup of coffee, or, you know, go for a small walk or something. So just don't, if you know that you have something that you absolutely... Okay, so I finished my first writing sprint of the day, and I went ahead and I did a little bit longer sprint to start with. It was, I think, about 15, might have been 18, but somewhere around there. And I got 552 words. So I went ahead and I updated NaNoWriMo. I am going to head off to the coffee shop and see who all is there and just kind of sit, drink coffee while I write. We did mention at the launch party, there was, we mentioned archetypes and characters and whatnot, and I have a set of Caroline Moss's archetype character cards that are gorgeous. But they're fun because if you pull out a couple, if you pull out one, that could be your protagonist, you pull out a second one, that could be your antagonist, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of fun to get just like story ideas just based on characters, seeing what you can make out of it. So it's an exercise in creativity, I guess. And so sometimes that really helps when I'm stuck in a bog. But I have my word sprint log that I'm keeping. Yeah, so I'm going to head off to the coffee shop and I will report back later because I can't take my web camera, not really, because it's a one on a little tripod, and I don't want to film people in the coffee shop that I don't know. So I'll see y'all later in the same chair. Bye. I'm back, and I thought the coffee shop was nice. I hadn't been there before. It's a coffee shop during the day and then a pub at night, but since we're there in the afternoon, don't really need the pub side of it. But it was very nice, lots of little small booths. I was able to do several word sprints and longer word sprints, and I got my words for the day, and I hit the 5,000 word mark. So I am now a fifth of the way done with my 50,000 words for NaNoWriMo. So I'm off to a good start. I did run into some problems with my transitions between a couple of scenes. I think they're problems anyway. I don't know. I'm having a little bit of problem trying to figure out how I want my main character to, how I want the dialogue between the hermit, who's going to be his mentor, and himself to go in order to one, plan out how he's going to get into the academy for being a magician, but also hide the fact that he's a dark magician. But there's also a scene that I want to include in chapter 3 where our main character gives back something that he stole from the creature in the woods, because since the dark god of this continent is also the aspect of balance and justice. So like the whole cycle of life and death and balance, everything has to be the same and equal on both sides in order for peace to reign. My main character is going to need to give back the thing that he stole to the creature that's in the woods, and that creature will then become a connection for later when he's stronger, will become his familiar. But I have to sort of figure out how the hermit is going to convince him, meaning the main character, that he needs to give back this herb to the creature, because the herb is worth a lot of money, and potentially the main character could use the herb as an alternative. He could sell it, and then he could have enough to either buy a small house or bribe somebody into getting him a job, even though he has been known as being magicless his whole life. So therefore most people consider him to be kind of useless. But now he knows that he has this dark magic, but he also knows on the flip side of that the dark magicians are banned, essentially, and that the temple of the flame god, whose double aspect is of the war god, will hunt all dark magicians down. So I have to figure out how the conversation between the hermit and our young, impetuous character, who has been desperate for magic and a new life and just some sort of sense of normalcy for his entire life, I have to figure out a way for the hermit to convince our young character that he needs to give this herb back to the creature. And I haven't figured out how to do that yet. Logic versus like emotional desperation kind of sometimes butts heads, and I have to figure out how I want that conversation to go, and I'm having a little trouble with that. I'm going to think over it. I'm going to put a pause on it for now and sort of move to the next scenes, and maybe think about it overnight. But I am completely done with the end of chapter 2 and the first half of chapter 3, which is fantastic. I am on board. My word count is good for the day, which means that despite having trouble with my transitions, I am still successful on day 3 of NaNoWriMo. So I'm going to put a pause on this for tonight. I'm going to see if I can edit it and put this video up. So I hope that today has either helped you procrastinate or helped you be productive, one or the other. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.